Welcome back. This is still TV3Newday. It's time now for the big issue, and my guests are in there seated. This segment is probably brought to you by Niche Chocolate and Niche Cocoa Drink, and it's for everyone in the family, whether it's the child, it's an adult, there's enough for everyone, and it's made from 100% pure cocoa and 100% Ghanaian owned as well. It has all the vitamins and the nutrients that you require, and so if you're stepping out for a meeting and you're in a hurry, or you probably just want to have breakfast at home, it's enough for you. So give it a try and let us know what you think. Niche Chocolate, Niche Cocoa Drink, taste of Ghana. In the studios this morning, I have the Deputy Minister of Energy. He's also the MP for Secondary, lawyer Andrew Mesa. Good morning.
Morning, Bella.
How are you doing?
By His grace,
You're
I'm
okay.
good. Yourself?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Good to
Also,
see you.
good to see you too.
Yeah.
We have the MP for Tamale North in the studio, Alhaji Suyini. Good morning.
Good morning, Bella.
How you doing as well?
Good
to see you. And also joining us on phone is Dr. Edu Sarkodie. He is a lecturer at the University of Ghana Department of Economics. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Bella.
Good to have you. Well, quickly before I start with you, Doc, let's just quickly take a look at what ensued in Parliament yesterday. We're expecting a budget review. What we're told was that the minister came in and presented a statement, and he said that, well, they were not going to ask for more money as was expected. And so people expected a supplementary budget, but the minister did say that there was no need to ask for more money as they were going to try and stay within, the expenditure rates that they had promised. And so let's take a look at that. Let's hear from the minority on some of the issues they raised with a presentation yesterday, and then we'll start our conversation.
Just had a copy of the document itself, only to realize that between January 2022, January 2022, and June 2022, the minister responsible for finance and the government has gone to the Bank of Ghana, and they have encouraged the Bank of Ghana to print money worth 22 billion Ghana cedis. They have printed 22 billion Ghana cedis fresh money without the knowledge of Parliament. Colleagues, I am saddened. No wonder inflation is galloping. No wonder that our reserves position is dwindling. If this trend continues, I won't be surprised that we'll end the year with inflation of 50%. If this trend continues, things fall apart. The center cannot hold.
The revisions in government's fiscal operations results in a fiscal deficit on cash basis of 38.9 million, 6.6% of revised GDP, up from the 2022 budget deficit target of 37.012 billion, 7.4% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance is a surplus of 2.46 billion, 0.4% of revised GDP, up from the 2022 budget estimate of a surplus of 435 million, 0.1% of GDP. Although the deficit, Mr. Speaker, is expected to be financed from both foreign and domestic sources, domestic financing will be the key driver while government works to regain external market access.
And that's the finance minister. But earlier you heard from the ranking member of the finance committee in Parliament. It's also MP for Jumako Inyan Esiam constituency in the Central Region, Honorable Kesiel Atu Forsin. Let's go back to Dr. Sarkodie on the line. Even before we get into these concerns that were raised by the minority, what is your general overview of the statement that was presented yesterday?
Well, I think it was just like the normal ones we were used to before COVID, where the minister would just come and revise the figures. Obviously, you have presented a budget for the year, and halfway down the year, it's good to see how you have felt over the period. And also, if possible, the minister will request supplementary estimates, that if there's any extra revenue somewhere that he wants to spend, or if there's any urgent need for extra appropriation. So it was just normal ones as expected. But this particular one, you can see that most of the figures were revised downwards, and that shows the effect of the war on the Ghanaian economy and then the global economy. And that's why sometimes when people downplay the effects of the war, I don't understand them. Because just like the COVID, the minister has revised downwards most of the figures. And of course, we have our own internal problems that we have to deal with as a country. But we cannot also underestimate the impact of the war. And so, well, generally, yes, he revised it as expected. With respect to the revenue, well, he made sure that they were still living within the means, even though there were revenue shortfalls, they still maintained that they will reduce expenditure just as to keep the budget deficit. And the financing has been the bone of contention now. The minister already said that they could not have access to the external financing. I think for some time now they've not been able to raise any bonds externally, and therefore most of the financing has been from domestic sources. And then domestic sources we know either from treasury bills, from government bonds, and the other option is what we call the quantitative easing, whether the minister would deliberately ask the central government to issue some long-term bonds just to, or print money as people may put it, just to get more, financing from the domestic source. So my impression so far is that it was normal, but I was expecting the minister to use this opportunity to present to Ghanaians and maybe to the IMF what program they have in place for which they need the support from the fund. That was missing, and I felt we should miss that opportunity too, as I think the minority has even alluded. But we may give him the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps they have not concluded on some matters. Perhaps negotiations are still ongoing. They have to agree on one or two issues before maybe it becomes public. So, yeah, that is what we have observed so far.
Okay, but the downward revision of the macroeconomic framework, I mean, we're seeing clearly that overall GDP growth rate has been reviewed downwards to 3.7% from 5.8%. And we have the non-oil GDP and period inflation all reviewed downwards as well. Does it inspire some level of confidence, or should we brace ourselves for a very difficult 5 months moving forward?
Well, it depends. I think the minister made mention of something which was very true, that there are some level of uncertainties around the global economy. Nobody knows when the war will end. Nobody knows when even COVID will end. Now, as you speak, there's another virus and another disease that is also springing up ahead of the monkeypox or whatever it is, the Marburg. And what if there's another war somewhere? So the uncertainty surrounding the global environment is keen. So first, the downward revision is as a result of all the happenings, both the internal problems and then the global economy. And secondly, the hope that the minister has given is that if things, go the same way, as in economics we say, if all things are equal, then they hope to grow the economy to some level. Let's see the drivers of GDP. We know the key determinants of GDP. Consumption expenditure. I mean, like you and myself, whatever we spend, we go and buy car, go to the shop to buy anything. That's a consumption expenditure. They also have the government consumption expenditure. Government paying salaries and government doing one or two things. We have the government investment, which we call the capital expenditure. And also we have the private investment. So for some time now, we have not been getting the private investment. You remember that the government went to the bond market, could not raise any bonds. Those who have even invested in the economy, they doubt they want to withdraw. So government is not getting the private investment as needed. And if you don't get that, you may not drive your GDP. And the other contributor is the net export, the export over imports. Again, if you are importing more than you are exporting, then you don't expect your GDP to grow. Every extra import is a reduction in the GDP. And then you look at the other figures, inflation. The drivers of inflation, we know from the exports, the exchange rate, the war, the fact that the government is not getting some of these things, the import, fertilizer, we have been told. And then also we have our own internal problems of transportation costs, the exchange rate depreciation, the lack of storage, and all that. All these things are affecting the inflation. Remember, if you want to really understand the contribution of the internal problems to inflation, look at the PPP, the producer price index.
Yeah.
The producer price index, as we speak now, is over 35%. It is clearly showing that we have serious internal problems with regards to production. So we have to resolve that. The government needs to deal with that, deal with storage, deal with transportation costs, and then we can be able to stabilize inflation for some time now. But the hope that the minister gave and you're asking is also hinged on the support from the IMF. So though there is a global challenge, though there are internal challenges, though we have downward revisions, but there's a window of hope because the IMF is coming to give us some stability and give us some credibility. And beyond that, the government can leverage on the stability to grow the economy to an appreciable level.
All right. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us. I do understand that you have lectures this early, and so we'll let you go.
Thank you, Clive.
Thank you. Maybe another time we can have you in the studio so we can break it down further. But that's
I can come this evening. I'll come.
No problem. Dr. Edu Sarkodie, he's a lecturer at the University of Ghana Department of Economics. Let me start off with you, lawyer Ejapa Mensah, because clearly from what our lecturer has said, they even expected a definite breakdown of exactly what deal we were going for with IMF and where we had gotten to so far. We didn't get all those details.
Well, I guess that we need to situate the conversation in its appropriate context, okay? Because the media review budget, it's a statutory requirement, and if you permit me, I'll just read the provision so that we are all clear with respect to where we are. Section 28 of the Public Financial Management Act, Act 921, says, and the minister shall, not later than the 31st of July of each financial year, prepare and submit to Parliament a mid-year fiscal policy review. 2. The mid-year fiscal policy review shall include the following information: brief overview of recent macroeconomic developments of government. B. An update of the macroeconomic forecast undertaken by government. C. An analysis of the total revenue, expenditure and financing performance for a period up to the first 6 months of the financial year. A presentation of a revised budget outlook for the unexpired term of the financial year and the implication of the revised budget outlook for the medium-term fiscal and expenditure framework if necessary. And E. When necessary, I. Plans for submitting a proposed supplementary budget for approval by Parliament. And II. An overview of the implementation of the annual budget and of the budgets of covered entities.
Okay.
So there's a statutory formula and the information that the Minister of Finance is required to provide to Parliament. That's exactly what he did yesterday. Of course, in the statement, he indicated that government was formulating some program, okay, enhanced domestic program, I believe. That's how he termed it, which they intend to be the basis for the conversation with the IMF. And I guess that he not being specific or providing detail. In any event, Bella, when did the World Bank team conduct their preliminary assessment of our economy? It was only a couple of weeks ago. And so I did not expect that the finance minister was going to provide any detail on the IMF conversation at this point. At the appropriate time when the conversation is concluded, document is concluded, I would expect him, as always, to come back to Parliament to provide what it is that is contained in that document. But I was satisfied yesterday.
You were?
Satisfied, absolutely.
The minority says it was empty. It was an empty statement. Looking at the situation we find ourselves in,
it was more deliberate. I read the provisions because I've heard Atoforce. And the text of the law is clear. Tell me which of the provisions were not met. And so if a minority, which because of their own political interest, puts the national interest aside and breach the law. Look at Section 22 of the Public Financial Management Act, which enjoins Parliament to approve all the enabling legislation that would empower the Minister of Finance to implement the budget of a particular year and when those legislation ought to be passed. Let me read it.
Okay.
Approval of the annual budget by Parliament. Parliament shall, by the 31st of December of each financial year, consider and approve A, the annual budget and the correlative work plan of government for the ensuing financial year. B, the appropriation bill. And C, any other bill that may be required to implement the annual budget. Is that what took place last year? The e-levy proposition was in the budget. The appropriation was approved to empower government to then implement the budget. The law enjoined Parliament to pass the enabling legislation that will allow the Minister of Finance to implement the budget by 31st December. Is that what took place? Yeah, they turn around. They turn around, completely pretending as if all the issues that are happening in the entire world excludes Ghana. That Ghana is an island that is not impacted by all the things that is happening across the world. So you see, they can use catchphrases, okay, and say all sorts of things. But as far as I'm concerned, if the Minister of Finance presents his mid-year review budget and he complies with the provisions of the law, doesn't matter what Atuforsen says.
It doesn't matter if they say you did not address the real concerns of Ghanaians.
The real concerns of Ghanaians was what? That there are challenges. No. The Minister of Finance did not admit that we were facing challenges as a country and that government was implementing policy to address those concerns.
But did he go into details with
But
regards
Bella,
to the exact challenges and what they are even going to do about it?
You see, there are issues. I'm not one to pretend as if to say everything is kosher because the reality is inflation is going up, cost of living is rising. So government has responded by providing 15% COLA, for example, to cushion public sector workers.
Where's that money even coming from?
Well,
because clearly the finance minister says we're not asking for more money, yet we're spending what we're told is an estimated 4 billion on COLA alone.
You see,
where's that money coming from?
Bella, I'm sure that when the details are provided, okay, I haven't seen a copy yet. Yesterday, the finance minister delivered the speech and implored the speaker to, as it were, admit the entirety of the program that he was presenting to Parliament. I'm sure that during the course of today, those documents will be made available, and we all will see in detail where those expenditure items are going to come from. Okay. But clearly, he did not present a supplementary budget. What it then means is that he was going to operate within the approved budget and actually make some expenditure cuts because the revenue that he was expecting to receive has not also come in. And so that's what it is.
Okay.
But I am confident that we have the capacity, the wherewithal to turn things around. Those matters that are within our control, government is working to deal with them. Those external factors that impact our economy in a negative way, we are hoping that now that they're beginning to have a conversation between the Russians and the Ukrainians on grains deal and all that, of course, post the signing of the deal, seeing some bombardment still going on. But I'm expecting that all those issues would be resolved in the course of time so that the impact can be minimized. But at the same time, roll out domestic policies that then insulates us from some of these external shocks when they come about. And that's exactly what the finance
We'll break it down further. Later, we'll take a look at NAPCO, free SHS and all that. But even before we get into that, now the other concern is the fact that we're told that our fiscal deficit, towards the end of this year should be around 6%. Okay, but there's a Bank of Ghana statement that showed that in the first half of 2022, our fiscal deficit was approximately like 6%. Now, if it should go downwards or it should stay the same, then that means that we're increasing revenue and reducing expenditure drastically. But if you look at the details that we're giving by the minister as well, so we're increasing revenue, or in actual fact, let me just read those details for you. It says here that we're revising our revenue even downwards by some 3.7%. And expenditure cut is just 1.8%. Now, minority is saying that if you do the calculations, already fiscal deficit is going to go lower by some 2 billion Ghana cedis. So we cannot stay at 6%
But
by the end of the year.
That's in
so
relation,
how are you still saying that we're still going to be at 6%?
That's in relation to your GDP. Okay, and GDP is projected to grow by some 3.7%. Okay.
But that's a downwards.
Yes, it's a downward
review, exactly.
So, no, I agree. I don't have a problem at all. But I'm saying that the end figure, okay, you have to benchmark it against the total GDP as of end of year. And that is what the Minister of Finance has projected, that looking at the projected growth, the total fiscal deficit would amount to 6.7% of GDP by close of year. And like I said, we'll see all in the detail because the budget speech really doesn't contain much as opposed to the appendixes where you will see the actual figure and projections and see where it is that we are by end of year.
Let me bring Alhaji in to respond to this. Okay, so why are you saying then that, you know, the statement that was released yesterday was completely empty? We've heard from lawyer Japa Mesa explaining to us that when you look at the Public Financial Management Act, they went according to what the law says. And so how do you then say it was empty?
Well, Bella, thank you very much. I think that you have asked some very critical questions, and that makes many of us believe that the finance minister in this government is engaged in some voodoo economics. I mean, the revenue, like you have correctly indicated, is going down, admittedly so. Yes, expenditure is expected to go down, but not to the same level that the revenue is going down. And yet, there are new expenditure lines that are introduced, such as COLA that you have mentioned. And somehow, the finance minister still thinks that the equation that I have just painted will not change the outcome. It can only be attributed to some voodoo economics that the finance minister may be engaged in. But like Mesha says, we will look at the details from today because the debate will start later today. Now, when he says that people are speaking as if the impact of the global economy, you know, should be disregarded, I don't think that he should blame those who say that. I don't think the global impact should be disregarded. But I think he should blame the chairman of the economic management team for it, who set a lot of theories when he was in opposition and made the point that Ghana could not be so affected by global economic trends, especially when its neighbors were doing better. And so when that same is played back, let Mercer and others not see it as people being ignorant of what is happening or people just playing to the gallery, but people perhaps trying to draw attention to the dishonesty that we have all approached some of these discussions with, you know, in the past and even perhaps presently. Now, he also has mentioned, you know, a number of things that he claims that, you know, the opposition seem to be engaging. I will not dwell too much on that. I will just look at, in my view, how this government seemed to have governed over the period. And, Bella, it breaks my heart that it looks as if they came to experiment with our economy and with our lives.
How do you say that?
When you look at some of the decisions, they beat, you know, understanding. It's just difficult for one to understand. Look, we're in this country when the road minister unilaterally, and in my view recklessly, announced the discontinuation of the collection of road tolls. Every economic watcher at the time criticized that move. This government, behind the scenes, admit that it was reckless.
Behind the scenes?
They do. They know that it was a mistake.
They know.
They
Did
know.
they ever tell
and they
you
admit
directly?
that. Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yet, because of some political expediency, they are unable to reverse that decision, even though they know that it is the correct thing to do. So for them, everything is about politics. It's not governance. It's not about doing the right things. Because they admit that what happened was wrong. In fact, the announcement even came before the the implementation was supposed to take effect. But they stuck with it. And that's how they have always done to take us to this ditch. Now the finance minister tells us, craftily, that when the rehabilitation of the Tema road is finished, road tolls will be back. If road tolls are that important, and everybody thinks that it is important, especially at this time, why is it difficult for you to just eat humble pie and say that perhaps we bank our hopes on e-levy, which was going to burden the poor who can't afford to buy cars? And so it has gone bad. Let us rather burden those who can at least afford to buy cars and use it for commercial purposes. And so we are bringing back road tolls. They won't do that because it is not politically expedient. And I'm saying when it comes to governance, you do not focus too much on the politics. We were in this country when in the same, with the same attitude, the vice president announced benchmark values reductions. Look at the trouble that it has created in terms of our revenue, mobilization, and also even in terms of growth to our own production in this country. That singular reckless act, they are unable again after that reckless act to confront the issue frontally and deal with it. Again, we're in this country when utility tariffs for the first time were announced by the president, reductions, at a time that people thought that it was reckless. Look, you can do the right things, but when you do it at the wrong time, it makes no meaning.
But
and for them, it is only done for political expediency. And that is how they have governed us to the ditch that we all find ourselves.
But in reversing the cancellation of road tolls, I've heard from the Deputy Roads Minister, Honorable Jalula, and he says that if we want to reverse that, then we have to come to Parliament and get them to agree on that before we can reverse it.
First of all, if that is true, how difficult is coming to Parliament? Is it a difficult thing to do?
But again, the same people who would have criticized the finance minister if he had announced that we're reversing the road toll policy.
There's always a political price to pay when you are governing and doing the right things. And that is the kind of leadership that we need as a country. Leaders who will be willing to pay the political price. I mean, when the NDC was in power and introduced ESLA, at a time that economic situation was not good, the president at the time knew it wasn't popular. But today, they in government who demonstrated on the streets against that president recognizes the importance of that levy. And without that levy, they can't balance their budget. That's leadership. So if you fear that you will be criticized for, eating humble pie, and so because of that, you'll stuck with the wrong thing, who are you doing? Like we say in local parlance, who are you doing? So assuming, and I'm making this point on the assumption that they have to come to Parliament. The correct position, however, is that they don't even need to come to Parliament.
They don't need
because the road toll, the Road Toll Act was not repealed.
Okay.
It was just an administrative decision. You remember the minister at the time said this was an administrative decision.
So there's no need, because I remember you criticized them. I remember when the roads minister announced the cancellation.
There is simply no need because the Road Toll Act is still in force. It was not repealed. And the minister at the time told us it was an administrative decision that they took.
Why did the minority and of course Parliament allow it to still carry on, the cancellation I'm talking about, if it really was not repealed?
Well, because it was a policy proposal by the finance minister,
which needed to come to Parliament.
Yes, in the budget, which was approved, a policy proposal which was approved. But the road toll, the regulations governing road toll collection is still in force. So the minister, if you recall, at the time told us that it was just a suspension. When he was pushed, he told us it was just a suspension. It was an administrative act. So I'm saying that it is, these reckless decisions that they have taken that have led us into this stage. And unfortunately, they don't seem to want to, take corrective measures. NAPCO is another example.
Before you go into NAPCO, let's finish with road so I can get Lawyer Mesa to respond to that. Now, we're told that the reason why the road tolls were cancelled was first because of traffic and also because of pollution. Right. But then again, we're told that the introduction of the e-levy will make up for whatever losses that are accrued since we cancelled the, the road tolls. Now that we're told that even for new roads, there's going to be the reintroduction of road tolls, do you think that at this point, of course, you're asking them to eat the humble pie and admit that it was a failed policy, they need to bring it back. Should we cancel e-levy, review e-levy? Because that also did not generate the income that we expected or the revenue that we expected to be able to fix our roads.
From day one, we have always said that e-levy was a bad law. We have been vindicated even by its performance. It was a bad law, and no one should blame, try to blame the minority for opposing it. It was the people of Ghana who opposed it. And if you thought it was just the NDC that opposed it in Parliament, the evidence of the fact that the people oppose it is in the performance of the law, since it was forcefully passed. People behavior has indicated clearly that it was a bad law, apart from the fact that it was meant to distort, our tax structure in this country. Today, in fact, even last night, when I sent 100 Ghana to somebody, I was taxed. We're told that 100, yes, and that was my first 100 Ghana that I sent to somebody. I was taxed.
Does it mean that maybe you've exhausted the 3,000 Ghana cedis for this month? Because we're told that, yes, 100 Ghana cedis.
In fact, I don't even remember the last time I sent Momo until last night.
So you've not exhausted the 3,000 Ghana cedis this month already?
Haven't.
And you were taxed, how much?
I was taxed about
did you pay?
30 pesos or so Ghana cedis. 0.30 Ghana cedis.
E-levy?
Yes.
Okay.
E-levy charge. So, and people are complaining about it these days. You send 100 Ghana cedis now, you're taxed. It is a bad law, and we opposed it because the people of Ghana saw it as it was, a bad law.
If it had been reviewed downwards.
So, I mean, that is a conversation we can have. The whole law, the whole levy in its current form is not even a correct tax, so to speak. When you talk about how taxes are introduced, consumption is introduced on consumption, is introduced on value addition and all of that. This you cannot categorize.
Okay.
So the whole thing was a bad law, and my brother has to admit that, and that is what has resulted in its poor performance. So yes, the government can look at that and review it.
Okay.
And reintroduce the road tolls.
They should.
Instead of going through the back door and making nonsense of the arguments that they made earlier about why they were, taking out road tolls. Because if you finish the Tema motorway and you bring it back, pollution is not going to all of a sudden vanish. Traffic is not all of a sudden going to vanish because you have now rehabilitated the Tema motorway. So I'm saying that they need to begin to take corrective measures regardless of the political price that they will pay, because they are going to pay for that political price anyway.
Okay.
Whether they review it or not, they are going to pay for that political price anyway. But it helps this country, going forward if they begin to take those corrective measures, and that is what patriotic people do.
Okay, lawyer, are you finding a clandestine way of reintroducing road tolls in this country, which is why yesterday we had the minister say that they are going to now reintroduce that on the new roads after the Tema Accra motorway
Bella,
is
I'm actually looking for the 2022 budget, okay, and the specific paragraph where the minister indicated that roads that were constructed under PPP arrangements were going to remain tolled. It's in the 2020 budget, 22 budget. The same budget where in paragraph 305 and 306, the minister announced the zero rate of the existing road tolls on public roads. So sometimes I wonder why our friends do that. And I'm sure he knows. Because I know that he is very diligent and thorough. He reads. And so he knows very much that in the 2022 budget, which was re-echoed in the mid-year review, that policy of tolling roads that were constructed under private-public partnership arrangements were going to be tolled. Otherwise, how were the private investors going to recover their monies? Yet, they come and sit here because it suits them to make it look as if to say somebody is using some clandestine, in his own words, means to reintroduce something that has been zero rated. But that policy hasn't changed. Because I drive to Takrady almost every week if I'm in town. And I'm not sure that all the toll boats at Kaswa, at Cape Coast, and at Beposo are going to be manned by personnel collecting people's money today. So why do we do this? But yes, if a road is constructed under a PPP arrangement that you and I pass in Parliament, that then set some specific infrastructure development under those arrangements, those investments ought to be paid for. So the minister comes back to Parliament yesterday and says that, well, that policy of redeveloping the Tema motorway is at procurement stage and that actual work is expected to commence in September. Rather than commend government for moving ahead with that policy and ensuring that that road is redeveloped for the benefit of the many commuters who would ply that road. We're coming to sit here and making it look as if somebody is reintroducing.
But lawyer, if you look at the reasons that were attributed to, the cancellation of road tolls, we were told that it was causing traffic, it was causing pollution, and that is why we had to scrap it. So this introduction of road tolls on this new road, like everybody is saying, it's not as if we're bringing electric cars this time around that will prevent pollution. It's not as if we're reducing the number of cars that will use that stretch. No, I'm not falling. I'm asking you as a Ghanaian.
For no technology,
I'm asking you as a Ghanaian.
Please, Bella.
Unless we're introducing electric cars.
Bella, it's not a question of electric cars.
No, I'm just saying, you're talking about pollution here.
But
we're talking about pollution here. So why is it okay to introduce the road tolls on this new road?
Road tolls
but the other roads don't deserve
only construction of concrete structures sitting in the middle of the road and collecting people's money. That's the road tolls.
So how are you doing it?
But please, let them complete it.
So you don't know?
Because I expect that they will introduce technology.
Can't we introduce technology on these other 37
But I'm saying that, you see, look, I agree that we could. I don't have a difficulty at all. But the policy was this, that because of the inconvenience and the pollution that traffic that it creates, if you are looking at a new revenue handle that would bring in more, in any event, the road tolls under the existing regime was bringing you in the region of some 78 or so million. That, in the view of government, was not worth putting people through the kind of wahala.
But we introduced
there was a new, of course, because
which is also putting people through another different kind of wahala. We're told that e-levy, a part of that, will be used to fix the roads, okay, which is where we're generating some money from the toll booths to fix roads and pay contractors.
Absolutely.
We heard from the deputy majority leader saying that at the end of the day, when the money came in, we were barely able to even pay contractors, not to talk of fixing roads. So e-levy was going to do that for us. We only generated just about 10% of even the estimates that we gave ourselves for e-levy. So it is not really fixing the problem, which is why we cancelled the road tolls.
You see, look, I expect that the e-levy will pick up.
Okay.
I expect. Because thankfully, Alassane Suhini has started using electronic transactions.
He's being charged for 100 Ghana cedis. When we're told that, when we're told that 100 Ghana cedis and below was not going to be taxed.
I suspect that it's probably a technical issue.
Okay.
Because when I saw a post on Manasseh's Facebook wall, I actually went on my platform to check because I send mobile money quite often and I don't get charged for the first 100. So I tried to send 100 and it indicated clearly that it was only the platform fee because I used Express Pay app that I was paying. E-levy was 0. So I suspect that it may be some technical challenge that because the regulations that were passed, in respect of, in fact, the law that was passed that governs e-levy, it will amount to a breach of that law if anybody goes to charge e-levy on the first 100.
Should we not have fixed those problems by now?
No, but of course, these are technical matters that can arise. I'm not a technical person, but I'm saying that I checked when I saw the post because I needed to verify whether indeed and in fact that was the regime. And I can confirm that that was not the case with respect to the platform that I use. Possible that some people may have encountered it. So it behoves on the Ghana Revenue Authority, the implementers, to resolve those matters, or if indeed there's a proposed amendment to charge from whatever rate, bring it up so that we can have a debate. But so long as the law is in place, I'm not sure that the Ghana Revenue Authority is going to breach it deliberately by charging people for the first 100 Ghana cedis. May possibly be technical.
Okay. Are we going to review it, though?
No, I suspect that, there was some timeline because they were rolling it out in phases, right? And so I expect that by the end of July timeline, where all the systems would have been integrated and all that, these matters will be resolved.
Should we be reviewing e-levy at this point? Because clearly we're not generating enough revenue from it.
Well, like I said, look, government has introduced tax measures that on further thought has been reviewed. In fact, revoked. Indeed, this government reduced, abolished some 17 taxes when it came into office.
And
of course, some
new ones.
introductions have been made. Yes, by all means. Okay, so I'm saying that if the need arises for the e-levy to be reviewed, I don't see why government will be shy in coming back to the people of Ghana and telling them that, look, we're expecting to raise X amount of money from e-levy to fund YZ budget line items. The funds that we are getting is insufficient to meet that our expectation, and so we have shelved it. I don't think anybody would be shy if we get to that point in coming back to
Would you actually boldly come out and say that e-levy did not generate the revenue, so we're cancelling it?
The luxury vehicle tax did not generate the revenue, and so it was abolished after a year of implementation or even half a year.
You have not been able to admit that road tolls was a bad policy.
Because I don't think it was. I'm
You don't
saying,
think
no,
so?
not at all. Because
you have not paid the people who worked at these road tolls till
those
date.
are questions that
you
we
have
can
not
deal with. Because
reassigned them.
look, I
don't you expect that the minister should have addressed that?
I agree.
Because these are Ghanaians as
I
well.
agree.
The economy
I agree.
is really difficult for everyone.
Bella, I shared.
Imagine having to work for months, not get paid. You're promised a reassignment. That doesn't happen. And we see persons with
preaching
disability
to the choir. I
on the
agree with
streets,
you entirely.
agitating and
I
demonstrating.
think that it's unfortunate that the road minister making the commitment that those unfortunate, disadvantaged brothers of ours were going to be reassigned. It hasn't taken place. Now, I urge him that as soon as possible, those unfortunate Ghanaians should be appropriately placed so they can earn some living.
What about the monies they're owed?
You see, of course, they should be paid. There's no issue at all. I'm not going to sit here and pretend as if to say...
Is it that,
no,
do we care about these Ghanaians? Because they're not the only ones. And I'm asking this because of NAPCO as well.
Bella,
because now we're told that NAPCO is ending in September.
I have shared my view.
Nothing was said about the monies that they are owed. We're only told that they'll be graduated onto the U-Start program so they can start a business. But they've released a statement. You've seen it. They said they're owed 9 months. Ghana is already owed some 7 months that was not paid, even before the extension. So let's just say we add 7 to 9.
Teacher training 7
That's
months.
many months. National service, they're saying they've not been paid.
Bella, I have shared my view.
We're not touching on the payment of monies owed to these people who
are not going to allow me
worked.
to speak.
I'm just asking you. Let me. I'm asking
the questions
hold
without
on.
giving me an opportunity.
It's the same thing.
So
I'm
how am I
saying
going to deal with it?
How come we are not addressing the monies that we owe these people? Young people who worked for months, did not get their salaries. We do a budget statement and nothing is said on that?
You don't have to belabor the point because I can give you a response that the finance ministry intends to pay the NAPCO personnel up to the last month that they exit work. In any event. But the program has been indicated that it's going to end in 2 months. And so there's no denying that they have worked and they are owed money. It's not as if somebody is saying that, well, the work that you've done is being discounted. There's clear indication. Budgetary allocation was made in the 2022 budget for the payment of NAPCO allowances. And I expect that government will pay them.
When?
Okay, I don't know as I sit here. But I'm saying that the program ends in 2 months. My expectation will be that they will be paid before they exit, so that at least they can, it's...
Lawyer, can you work for 9 months without getting paid and still remain calm?
I can't.
So is it fair what's happening to the Naponians?
It cannot be fair. No. Okay? But government requires revenue to pay expenditures. You know the challenge that our economy has gone through in the past 7 months. So it's possible that that revenue that was expected to come in that would enable government to pay some of these obligations have not come in. But it doesn't take away the fact that it's still an obligation of government. And unlike in the past, and when you go there, you see, it's good we move forward, okay? But when you hear commentary from my good friend Alassane Suhini and his party people, it's as if to say that they believe in their heart of hearts that the suggestion by Mr. Muhammad that Ghanaians have short memory is actually factual.
Why do you say that?
We saw their mismanagement of this country's resources.
Which is why they were voted out.
Absolutely. And so let them be the last people to even make statements to try and justify whatever it is that, or condemn whatever it is that.
But they are not the only ones making statements. Ghanaians, the Ghanaians who voted you in the power,
specific reference
are also
to my friend
criticizing
Al-Hassan
your governance.
I don't have a problem. It's legitimate. But let it not be said that we have forgotten, because we haven't. You recall what they did to the trainee teachers, even people who had been recruited for 2 years and they didn't pay them.
What have you done better?
You see, those were specific decisions that were taken not to pay at all. Government hasn't come out to say that it's not going to pay the NAPCO employees.
Recruited teachers for 2 years.
Of course.
And refused to pay them and
Did you-
decided not to pay them.
You see, you said you were not going to pay those
The teachers
money.
you
Of
recruit.
course, yes, you're not going to pay.
In which country?
2 years, right here in Accra. And I'll pull that. No, of course, unless of course your memory is no problem at all.
Recruit teachers. They are teaching in their classroom and government will say it won't pay them for 2 years. When has it ever
I think there were some that said that they were only paid the first 3 months, and after that they were
It's
told that they would not
unbelievable.
be
You've
paid.
forgotten all of a sudden.
So, but lawyer, instead of going backwards,
talking about
that's what I'm
numbers.
saying,
So
that
precisely the
these
point
were
that
the
I
reasons
made.
why
No,
the NDC
Bella,
was voted out.
You see, don't take me out of context, though.
No, I'm not. I'm
Because
just saying
I
that
said
that
to
is
you,
why they were voted out.
No issue. I said to you right here that moving forward is good. And so it is necessarily not the case that I want to dwell on what NDC did. But in the same vein, I expect them not to think that we have forgotten, because we haven't. That's the point that I was making. But I've gone further to tell you that, as far as I'm concerned, there's been no indication from government that these monies will not be paid.
Okay.
I've further gone on to explain to you that, having regard to the challenges that we have faced in the past 7 months as a country, it is entirely possible that those revenues haven't come to enable government pay. But that obligation is still that of government.
Okay.
How is that difficult to understand?
Let me let Alaji just
Yes,
touch on this
yes.
quickly before we go on a break.
You see, first of all, I think that my brother Mercer must understand something, and you made it clear when you asked the question about why they are in government. The people of Ghana may have
Alaji,
thought-
just hold on. We've had someone on the phone for a while. Let me just quickly bring him in. Apologies for that. But Dr. Pierre Osei Owusu, Transit Administrator for the City of Durham in North Carolina. He joins us via phone. Good morning, Doc. Doc, can you hear us? Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And sorry for keeping you waiting. But I mean, I don't know what you make of the introduction of road tolls on these new roads that we're told would be constructed.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who have said that this is a subtle way of admitting that the cancellation of road tolls was a bad idea, and government is trying to find a very, quiet way of bringing it back. Do you agree?
Yeah. I'm watching you on TV and at the same time talking. I hope I'm in line. But even before I go there, let me talk about the E-levy, which is the beginning of this problem. The E-levy is good. I mean, our problem is this. There is so much informal sector. Any idea that will bring in a little bit will help. The E-levy projections were wrong. Whoever did the E-levy and gave the projections that all of a sudden we're going to get 90% is where the problem is.
Okay.
It will grow over time, and I'll start with the last speaker. Over time, it's going to grow, and it will help. But coming back to the toll, if the toll is going to be reinstated, it has to be done on a different paradigm.
Okay.
There are models everywhere. Several countries did it in North Carolina, and it can be done with profit. I mean, to the point where it will not be even the government. The government will float it out, tender it, expect a certain amount. This is where the universities come in and give a very good projection of what it expected. And a certain amount will be tendered to the public for private sector to take in. They will retain the workers. And so my point is, there is so much informal sector in the system. It's all about revenue collection and revenue expenditure. You don't have the funds. So any way that you can get in a little will help.
Go to America with a very fat budget. You're going to see very clearly that everywhere you go, there are tolls. I mean, travel to New York and see what you're going to pay. Now, even the American government is allowing private individuals to construct roads and over time collect the money and have a fair share to the government. So my point is, yes, the road toll should be back. Two, it should be done in a very different way. Talking about pollution. Pollution is everywhere. But the point is, there is a way around it. Why do you have these trucks coming through? Why can't they have transporters? Why can't they pay? So that at the borders or where the tolls are, they don't stop. That is what is idling and all this thing we are talking about, pollution is coming from. If everybody will travel anyway, toll or no toll. The point is, reduce the congestion as much as possible by allowing people to pay and give them discounts so that it will entice them to do that. So that's my little contribution. I mean, if they want models, I can give them examples of what we did some time ago in North Carolina.
Okay. If you can just give us one example so we can wrap up.
Excuse me?
Can you hear us, Doc?
Hello?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was
mean,
asking for at least one example.
Yeah, well, an example is where you spatially come up with, yes, I can hear you. Yeah, a very simple example is where you actually look at, the other day when you interviewed me in November, I said, very simply, find how many cars, what we call ADT, how many cars travel along that stretch of road. And once you know that, you can project how much. I tell you, if the toll is 2 cedis, people will pay.
Okay.
I mean, that is where you come in and say, okay, we expect $300 million. Okay, float it, tender it out, and say, I need 280 or 260. That 17 million or so that I had may not be the figure at all, but you don't have any way of monitoring it. And that's why we have that. But if you have very good statistics, if you have very good research, say the ADT for the whole country, for the tolls are 20, 40 million or so, you can easily project the expenditure that the revenue you should be getting.
All right.
And
Thank
float it out
you.
to private entrepreneurs and let them tell me what they are working.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dr. Pierre Osei-Owusu is the Transit Administrator of the City of Durham in North Carolina. He was just giving us his 2 cents on this. I was just going to allow Alaji to touch on this briefly, then we take a break.
Isabella, let's not forget that NAPCO trainees were actually assured in the NPP manifesto for 2020 that they will be given permanent jobs. It has turned out to be a lie, because even immediately after the 2020 general elections, we saw companies that started writing to their NAPCO, employees not to come to work. And ever since, the arrears that they are owed have only increased instead of it being paid down. Now, the finance minister is compelling everyone that is unemployed to become an entrepreneur. So he says that those who are on NAPCO must get ready for USTART. USTART that they do not even have funds to even launch, because we were told they were expecting money from the e-levy to,
But they've piloted it.
Fund the USTART.
They've piloted it, and they told us that some amount of money was even spent on the pilot as well. I think some 1.9 million Ghana cedis was dispersed.
They were supposed to launch it. They haven't been able to launch it. And I'm telling you that it's because they have not received the revenue that they were expecting will come to government. And yet they are still deceiving these young men and women on NAPCO that there is a program called USTART, which clearly doesn't have the funds that they expected to have to support them, apart from the fact that they are compelling all of them to become entrepreneurs, and knowing very well that not everybody can be an entrepreneur. And same can be said about, teacher trainees, about nursing trainees, and what have you. I mean, apart from the arrears, the whole education sector is in a mess in terms of syllables, in terms of reporting to school, in terms of feeding students, everything in the education sector. And I have said somewhere that it's not just our economy that is in a mess. Our educational sector that we are not paying attention to is messier, in my view, than even the economy. Now, there was also the issue of printing money, Bella, and that for me is very crucial And I expect that the finance minister in the debate in the coming days will explain to us what this whole policy is about. Because it is very, very inimical to, the transformation that we are hoping our economy will get as a result of whatever crisis that we have been plunged into. When you have the Bank of Ghana print about 22 billion Ghana cedis in the first 6 months of this year, when the budget for 2022, made no provision for that, and especially when it took us, a lot of hard work to move away from, Bank of Ghana financing of our budget, where in 2016 there was zero financing, you would have thought that this government would have built upon it. Then COVID hit, and they decided to go back to Bank of Ghana financing. And everyone thought that, okay, this was as a result of the crisis. It can be pardoned. But for the government to continue the printing of money, it tells you why we are unable to manage inflation. And no matter what the monetary policy, does, they are not going to be able to manage inflation with this current regime of printing money the way that the government has resorted to. I think that they need to further explain that, because as things look now, it just seems criminal that the Bank of Ghana will print about 22 billion, putting the value of our currency at risk. And, also showing how like the ranking member predicted, if we are not careful, we are going to end the year with inflation going to about 50% if this trend continues.
Was it not part of the SDR from the IMF, which is what I think we're told in the appendix or so, concerning this 22 billion?
No. If you look at the 2022 budget that was approved, the finance minister indicated zero financing from the Bank of Ghana. And yet, in this mid-year review, which was not in the speech that he presented, for I'm sure very good reasons, he decided not to even report it in the speech, but it's in the document that was presented,
yes,
where it's indicated that from January to June, the Bank of Ghana has financed this government by about 22 billion Ghana cedis. No wonder we are unable to tame inflation.
Okay, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll have lawyer respond to this allegation that some $22 billion was printed by the bank. 22 billion Ghana cedis, pardon me, was printed. Keep watching. This is The Big Issue on TV3 New Day. Welcome back. This is The Big Issue on TV3 New Day, and this segment is proudly brought to you by Nish Cocoa Drink, Nish Taste of Ghana. In the studio is lawyer Andre Japamesa, is the Deputy Minister of Energy and also the MP for 2nd D. And we also have the MP for Tamale North, Honorable Alassane Suini, here with us as well. Lawyer.
Bella, sometimes my good friend Ato, the kinds of allegations that he throws out, is unbelievable. Because I've checked the Bank of Ghana Act, and I haven't seen anywhere that it says that if the Bank of Ghana is printing currencies, it requires parliamentary approval. So assuming without admitting that the Bank of Ghana has printed some currency without parliamentary approval, as is alleged by my good friend Ato Forsen, what law is he speaking to? Because Section 35 of the Bank of Ghana Act 2000, Act 612, is clear. The bank shall have the sole right to issue and redeem currency notes and coins in the country. Yet, you have the ranking member of the Finance Committee sit on national TV and accuse the Bank of Ghana of printing money without parliamentary approval. So
are you admitting that there was some printing of money?
Assuming without admitting, because I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm saying that, assuming that that even was the case, does Bank of Ghana require parliamentary approval to print currency? But you get the Finance Committee ranking member sit. It should have been in the budget, parliamentary approval, when no such law exists. In any event, I'm told that the Ministry of Finance is going to respond to the allegation that has been leveled by the ranking member of Parliament. I haven't seen the document. I haven't seen the document. I called the Deputy Finance Minister when we went on break. And you were here when I asked him that this allegation that is coming from the NDC, Where is it coming from? He says it's not true.
Okay, well, we
But
didn't
they
hear
want
that
to
part
resign.
because you were speaking to him, so
but
we're not sure what he said.
You heard me call him,
Yeah, of
right?
course. We know you called.
You
but we don't know
cannot
what he
exact
said
anything
on the other
out
side of
me
the
at
phone.
this point.
If he had anything contrary to what I said, he would have told
So
you.
categorically, that allegation that the Bank of Ghana has printed 22 billion to support government is false.
I thought you said you didn't know.
Wait, I'm
so
saying.
how do you then say it's false?
Will you allow me to?
Okay, please carry on.
I said to you that the finance ministry,
They didn't print 22 billion to support
the deputy finance minister has confirmed that allegation is false.
It's false.
And that the Ministry of Finance is going to respond formally to that allegation. That's
So we didn't print any 22 billion. It's as simple as that.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Okay. Why are you shocked? He says that.
But you see,
no,
please.
Okay, sorry,
you see,
still on.
He makes the point also that in 2016 there was no BOG financing. And the expectation was that government was going to continue. He skipped 2017, he skipped 2018, he skipped 2019, and went to 2020 and made reference to COVID. Yes, there was no BOG financing of government budgets in 2017, 2018, 2019. 2020, when it became necessary for government to go to Bank of Ghana for some 10 billion or so, those requests were duly submitted to Parliament for approval, and approval duly granted before those monies were taken from Bank of Ghana. These are matters of fact.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just surprised.
And you're surprised about what?
You want me to talk?
Are you ready for him to
Yeah,
come in and respond?
Two things that I'm
Okay.
surprised about. Two things that I'm surprised about. Now, just a while ago, he told us that Parliament has no role in the printing of money by the Bank of Ghana. Now, in justifying the 2020 printing of money, he says that it was reported to Parliament. And what did Atu say?
But who says that I'm speaking about the same matter that you are
What
talking about?
Atu said was that they printed money without the knowledge of Parliament.
Look,
that is different from without the approval of Parliament. And then in your own justification of the printing that was done in 2020, you are justifying it by saying that they brought it to Parliament, which was approved, and then they went ahead to issue it.
Unless your understanding of unless it was my time that you took. So please, unless your understanding of BOG financing is necessarily printing money, then your so-called me being contradictory is right. But I don't think that BOG financing of government budget is necessarily going to the mint to go and roll out CDs and giving it to government. Okay? And so to that extent, I'm very consistent with the point that I'm making, that our banking regulations, our public financial management regime requires a zero Bank of Ghana financing of government budgets.
Right.
If that eventuality is required, then a formal approval of Parliament, because it's public financial management.
So what did Atu say wrong?
He says that Bank of Ghana has printed money. And
For
I'm saying
government.
that, please.
For government,
please,
without Parliament's knowledge.
Please. I'm saying that the law that I read to you, Bank of Ghana is mandated to print money. It doesn't require parliamentary approval to print money. If Atu's assertion is that Bank of Ghana has provided funding of our budget to government to the tune of 22 billion without parliamentary approval, let him say so.
That's what he said.
But that's not what he said.
That's not what he said. Okay.
Is that what he said?
Can we play what he said again, just so we're both sure?
Yes.
Let's just play again what Honorable Kesela Tuforsin said.
They have
Let's take
printed
a look.
22 billion for government. What does it mean? They
Let's
didn't
take a
print
look.
it to put in their shelves. Or their shelves.
Okay.
So
We're pulling it up. We'll
they
try
want to
and play
bring
it.
the money from wherever.
Why? So
and said
they
that
printed 22 billion
this
to
money
keep.
is for government of Ghana. Print it. Go and give
Let's
it to
listen to Honorable Kesela Tuforsin on what exactly he said. Listen.
to spend.
Just had a copy of the document itself, only to realize that between January 2022, January 2022, and June 2022, the minister responsible for finance and the government has gone to the Bank of Ghana and they have encouraged the Bank of Ghana to print money worth 22 billion Ghana cedis. They have printed 22 billion Ghana cedis fresh money without the knowledge of Parliament. Colleagues, I am saddened. No wonder inflation is galloping. No wonder that our reserves position is dwindling. If this trend continues, I won't be surprised that we'll end the year with inflation of 50%. If this trend continues, things fall apart. The center cannot hold.
So what has he said?
Yeah.
What did
What
he
did
say?
he say exactly?
That the Minister of Finance has gone to the Bank of Ghana to encourage the governor and the Bank of Ghana to print money for government. How is that done?
It's not possible.
I'm asking you. How is that done?
I'm also asking you. You are in government,
Because
so you should tell me. Is it
but
not possible?
I've indicated to you the response that I got based on the phone call that it's false and that the Ministry of Finance is going to issue a formal statement. But beyond that,
Did the phone call actually tell you it is false,
yes,
categorically?
absolutely.
False?
It is false.
Please.
Clear.
Okay.
What you were listening into my
we heard
conversation
from
or
him.
what?
Let's wait from
But you see,
the
beyond that,
communique
Your
from
beyond
the
that,
speaker
finance
was
ministry.
loud, and they were offering you an explanation that you were not understanding, and the person said, "We will issue a statement later."
Look, because I haven't read the document.
And then you had to.
So you haven't read the document, so you don't know if it's
I didn't tell you it's false.
So what I've said to you
I didn't
here.
tell you they haven't printed money.
Alasan.
Okay.
I said to you here that I have not read the document.
It
But
is
when we
on
went
page
break,
97
please,
of
I don't have a
the
problem.
statement.
I haven't read
Appendix
it.
2A. We have given you that.
And not reading it is not a crime.
Okay.
Yes.
Because those documents were not made available as at the time that I was leaving Parliament yesterday.
Not reading it is not a crime, but
Will you-
dismissing
will you-
it
will you allow
without
me to
Well,
make
any
at this point, I mean, he
contrary-
says
I've
that
said to
he's
you
spoken to the
that
deputy
I've
finance
spoken
minister who
to
says it's not true. Let's wait
Deputy
and see.
Finance Minister John Kuma, who has said to me, I asked him, where is this allegation coming from? He says, oh, don't mind them, it's not true. Yes, these are his words.
Okay.
But that the finance ministry was going to issue a formal response.
Okay.
Yes, he tried to explain. But I cannot sit here and soak in all his explanations. So I do not have to provide.
Okay.
But I'm saying to you that beyond that, let's interrogate the words of the ranking member of the finance committee. That one too, we can't do it.
Well, of
So
course,
if I'm
which is
proceeding
why
to
we're asking
interrogate
these questions
his
here.
comments, what was the issue?
Okay.
Because you see, look, it is one thing saying that somebody has printed money and making it look as if printing money is an illegality. And another saying that the government has gone to the Bank of Ghana for Bank of Ghana financing without parliamentary approval. The two cannot be the same.
Okay.
At least, to my understanding, okay, you may have a different view. And clearly, Alasan Suhini and Dr. Kisla Atufosen have a different view. But I'm saying that going to Bank of Ghana or Bank of Ghana exercising its statutory right to print currency is normal. It's contained in law. If the assertion, which they suggest that they went to encourage them to print money for government, as if to say they went to the mint in wherever they print the currency, and so print this money, let me go and give it to Ken Ofuriato to spend. Please, let's not treat these matters in a simplistic manner, okay? The public finances are clear. Nobody can hide anything. Every single transaction that you do is properly recorded, and the accounting is what it is that will come to Parliament. So let's go and interrogate the document, and at the end of the day, we'll see whether indeed and in fact there's been some Bank of Ghana financing of government budget or not. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Alaji.
So I'll just reiterate the point. Page 97, Appendix 2A. If you go there, you will find the Bank of Ghana.
Read the document
the
from
Of the main, of the main.
the bank,
and the
Okay.
the bank,
Read it.
Do you have it
Bank
here?
of Ghana.
Read
I
it.
don't have it
You
here.
don't
I
have
have
it
only
here.
the
Okay.
speech.
You
I have only the
talk in
speech
text.
here.
Read
But
it.
I have that document. I just don't have it in the studio here. But I have the
Producers,
the
if you
speech
can
here.
help us find that
Now,
document so we can
but
just
I've given you
figure it out.
the page number. I've given you the appendix. It is right there in
Okay.
black and white. That 22 billion Ghana cedis was printed by the Bank of Ghana between January, 2022 and June 2022 for government expenditure. And the fact is that this affects our inflation This affects our reserves. This affects the value of our currency. And if you want to dismiss all of that, the evidence is in the fact that we are unable to tame inflation today. Our reserves are nothing to write home about. And very soon, the value of our currency will also be, don't compare yourself to nations that produce. Don't compare yourself to nations that produce more than you do. You know, in the context of
so
managing
the expectation
inflation,
was that they won't have the kind of inflation that we are having today. But they are having it.
Allow Alaji to speak.
Economics basic 101. They tell you that demand and supply determine, prices of goods. So when you print more money and you have more money in circulation, what it simply does is that it balances out.
I agree.
With increase in
and
prices.
I'm saying that
and that is why we are having, unpredictable prices of goods today.
So the United Kingdom, United States are all printing
so when
money
you have a country that produces more than you do, I mean, when the goods are produced to match the printing of cities, you don't compare yourself to such countries. Please, let's not go there. But another issue that he raised that I just got a text message that I think that I should share with him, is the issue of teachers. I was going to dismiss it, but I see that it is the kind of propaganda that they engage in by just saying it is false and just throwing it out there and then running with it. He talked about teachers that were recruited for 2 years and I was shocked because I'm a teacher. That's my first profession, and I'm hoping that it will even be my last profession. If that is what God chooses for me, because I love that profession. And so it is clearly untrue that teachers were recruited, and for 2 years they were not paid. And I'll just share a text message with you. It is not the explanation that I'll offer that will even make it clearer. This person says, the GS used to recruit teachers on their own without the recourse to the finance ministry. And in most cases, there were ghost teachers who never stepped in classroom to teach. Yet, they were receiving salaries. So the Ministry of Finance then introduced a policy to pay the first 3 months and do proper due diligence before paying the balance. And my wife was affected, but she received her remaining balance after she received her remaining balance after the exercise in 2015. It was around 8,578 or so. So it's not true that government didn't pay those who were genuinely recruited. These are the facts. So stop the propaganda. GS used to recruit without recourse to finance ministry. And in line with what I said earlier about governance, taking the correct decisions even if they are painful, the government of the day decided that there was a need to stop the ghost teachers. And so they then said that we are going to vet, the identity of these names that are reported to us. And so they paid 3 months of their arrears. And if you were proven indeed to be properly recruited as a teacher, you were given your arrears. And you ran to town with the propaganda. That is what I said about governance not being about, a walk in the park. Taking strong decisions, even if at the time you are taking those decisions, you seem very unpopular. And that is what the previous government was not shy of doing.
You see, this explanation or rationale that he provided, there's an article that is reported on Ghana.
Articles that you sponsor.
Oh, please.
Articles that you sponsor to feed your propaganda.
Oh, wait.
Allow him to read it. Allow him to read it. We cannot verify as we are sitting here that he sponsored this article.
In fact, they have websites and the information
we cannot verify
that they run at the
You allow him to read.
The one is 100 Ghana. How much do they pay those social media?
I will even read what the teacher unions said. I'll read what Professor Jenana Opoku-Agyeman is reported to have said in justification of that policy. And you will see the marked contradiction with her justification with what he read. Vice presidential candidate for the NDC, Professor Jenana Opoku-Agyeman, has justified the decision by the S1 Mahama administration to pay teachers 3 months' salary despite the claim they worked for over a year. She indicates that affected teachers were not employees of government, and as such, could not have claimed salaries they were not entitled to.
Well, how is that different?
Is it the same as yours?
How is that different? Because the teachers were paid. Those who were not government, who were not teachers, were really not paid.
Okay.
That's what it means. Or you don't understand English. That's what it
According
means.
to her,
the teachers were paid, but those who were not employees.
Why you let him land.
I'm saying to you that
I
you
don't
see,
get you.
you see, but of course you won't get me. Because deliberately you choose not to get me. You see, the point is this. It is not in doubt that in the past, during Mr. Mohammed's era, some teachers who had been recruited to teach in our schools were paid 3 months. It was a policy. He says that the 3 months were paid to as a, if you like, some
within
advanced
the period
payment
of verification.
for further verification.
Okay.
The vice presidential candidate
That's what I was shocked.
is saying otherwise, that
Okay.
these were not employees and so
No,
they were not paid. But
those,
you see,
those who were proven not to be employees were not
We're
paid.
not paid.
You see,
Okay.
I mean, that's the point.
you see,
Let lawyer land, please.
you see, Alasan.
You know, he should have read the article off air before reading it.
Oh no, I read it
That's
earlier.
called his
No, I read it earlier. I read it
Then
earlier,
you didn't
but
understand it. Sorry. Proceed.
well, maybe my English is so good.
Okay, we have to
Your
go, lawyer,
English is
but
not-
let's
your
just land
English is
quickly
very
on this
good.
because
It's just that your
a lot of people have been
propaganda is
asking that
clouding
the
your
windfall
English.
that we made from the sale of, oil, crude oil, right? We need to get the details of exactly how much we have made from it, because now we're told that we're not going to be asking for more money, but in actual fact, we're going to even rely on the windfall from the energy sector to be able to
You see,
manage the economy. How much have we made?
What we feel, I don't have the details.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought you would because
no,
you're the deputy energy minister.
No,
so
I
you
know,
might
but of
have
course,
those
it's
details.
a revenue measure which is managed by the Ministry of Finance, and so yes, even though it's oil revenue, it's regulated under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act,
Okay.
which spells out how monies that are accrued into the Petroleum Holding Fund ought to be allocated. But I was making the point that we fail to recognize that budgets are projections, okay, of expected revenue and expenditure. And so you may project a $58 per barrel revenue from your oil, which would then feed into how you expend. But you may get more or get less. You recall that during Mr. Setekpe's era as finance minister, when the oil prices reduced significantly beyond a certain level, they actually introduced a tax to, as it were, complement the shortfall in government revenue from oil receipts. Okay, and so if the projection is said that now the world market prices is high, then you can revise it to improve your revenue sources. Of
But
course,
you don't have the details.
yes, we do not know how things will pan out for the rest of the year. But I guess that is a legitimate basis to forecast and to say that because of these additional revenue that has come in, we may not necessarily, indeed, there's some expenditure rationalization that is taking place in government. There's some expenditure cuts that are taking place. There's some complete overhaul of several other decisions that government is taking to ensure that we are able to manage our resources better, bring about debt sustainability, and move the economy from where it is that we find ourselves, because the track record of fixing our economy is there for all to see.
All right. Just to be fair, final words,
Yes.
Alaji.
You
so we
see,
can
I
go.
also discovered, curiously, Bella, on paragraph 53 of the minister's speech that they had made some savings of about 13.2 billion over the life of PPAs through a combination of reduced capacity and energy charges. I find it very curious because it was this same finance minister who came to Parliament and told us the truth about how much they had paid for excess capacity charges, which was far below the $1 billion annual, propaganda that they had run it for a very long time, which the vice president unfortunately still runs
I
with.
wish you had brought
Now,
this matter up.
now,
we deal with it once and for all. Because your question
he
was
claims,
specific.
Yes, the question was specific to how much you had paid for 4 years.
To IPPs.
To IPPs.
Yeah.
And then he came with a figure that was about 973 million for the 4 years. Yet they had claimed all this while that they were paying 1 billion a year for excess capacity charges. So I find it very curious that he still engages in this propaganda, suggesting that they had negotiated and they are now they have saved the country about 13.2 billion US dollars. Now,
That's not
how
okay.
much was it that they had negotiated to save us 13.2 billion?
Give me a minute.
Permission, just 1 minute. Let's just let lawyer respond to this issue so we don't leave it hanging.
So if you read the text carefully, the minister is informing Ghanaians that because these are 25-year agreements, okay, and so if you renegotiate some of the capacity and energy charges today, okay, then the saving over the life of the agreement, okay, is what it is that he puts there as the 13.2 billion. So it is not the case that between 2017 and 2022, he has saved the public purse 13.2 billion.
Okay.
He's saying that based on the negotiations that we've had, which if we hadn't have, would have cost us the amount of money that would pay over the life of the agreement plus the 13 billion savings that has been made. So that's the explanation for that. It's legitimate. See,
you had only 1 minute.
Oh,
we have to go.
This talk about excess capacity.
Take some water.
It's important to Alassane. We need to be very honest with ourselves as a people, because the expenditure that government has incurred for direct payments to IPPs and for gas and other related fuel costs is real. It's real. It's not conjecture at all. The 17 billion that the vice president makes reference to, okay, $3 billion expenditure that's been made is real. And the figures are there for those who care to check, to know. You asked a specific question related to. Hold on.
Your colleague was in Parliament and told us
we have to go,
the figure the vice
unfortunately.
president
The 1 minute is up.
false.
We have to go.
Awureku was in Parliament and told us the 1 billion a year is false.
Look,
Okay.
that's not
Your
true.
colleague,
Well,
the deputy
maybe
minister
another
was
time
there.
we'll delve deeper into this
He
matter.
told us
but
the 1 billion a
unfortunately,
year is
our
false.
time is up. We have to go. I've been speaking to
I'm surprised you are here
Honorable
to defend.
Alassane Suini. He is the MP for Tamale North constituency and also MP for 2nd D and Deputy Minister of Energy, Honorable Lawyer Andrew Ejapa Mesa. Let's read a few messages quickly and then we can wrap up on the big issue. So first one, good morning, Bella. Please kindly tell Ejapa Mesa to stop lamenting. Ghanaians are not ready to listen to their lamentations. All we want is the economy back on road. Ni ayi in abofu. Bella, good morning. Please, the least said about this government, the better. I'm just praying that the people in Ghana can still be alive till they leave power or resign from office one day. Where's the money Nana said we were sitting on? JJ from Cape Coast. Please ask the MPs with truth and all honesty, do they still trust the Minister of Finance with his figures after all this dishonesty to them and to the state? Have they found out how much commission the Finance Minister and his private company are going to make on these loans, if anyone making commission on the $750 million US? I still wonder why the Finance Minister is still at post and still going to the People's Assembly, that is Parliament House, to disrespect Ghanaians this way. Nana Odame from DC. Hi, Bella. What Suini is saying about e-levy is true. Even if you send 1 cedi, you are charged 0.02 pesos. 2 cedis, you are charged 0.03 pesos. 100 Ghana cedis is 1 cedi, 50 pesos. Well, he said 30 pesos. In fact, there is no transaction that is not charged. They've scammed Ghanaians. You can just try it now to confirm. Well, I've tried sending 100 Ghana cedis. I wasn't charged. So, again, there may be issues. I hope that they resolve it. It's clear that this country of ours is being governed by confused people. As for me, I'm just asking the road minister to resign. Isn't that enough? If indeed the law on road toll is not repealed from our books, then the roads minister must be charged for causing financial loss to the state. He must pay for all the losses from November 2021. That's Father Doomson from Ahanta West. Good morning, Bella. Please tell the MPP man, that's Lawyer Mesa, by the way, that he shouldn't pretend. They know what they're doing. Will they still get the estimated amounts from the e-levy? Because the SIM cards will be cut off on the 30th of this month. And majority of Ghanaians have still not linked their SIM cards because they do not have the Ghana card. Maxwell Azuma from Aflao. Bella, trust that you're good. I was as well wondering how suddenly the pollution and traffic issues would vanish just because a private businessman is involved in the new road retolling program. Let the Honorable MP be honest and eat the humble pie. His I don't knows are too many. It's true that moving forward is good, yes, but not blindly. This government seems to be experimenting with the lives of Ghanaians just to enrich themselves. That's Kofi Asiedu Mante. They said they don't want to hear you say you don't know again. Lawyer. Sometimes I watch these MPP communicators and the way they force themselves on us to believe them, and that shocks me. What doesn't that who doesn't know you guys have failed? Ghanaians, who doesn't know you guys have failed Ghanaians, apart from those who are benefiting? I will only comment on the economy at the polling station come 2024 from a loyal, disappointed NPP supporter.
That's
anyway,
a way to end it.
We have to go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. We have more coming up right here on TV3 New Day. Don't go anywhere. This segment has been proudly brought to you by Niche Chocolate and Niche Cocoa Drink, Niche Taste of Ghana. We'll be back.